for the invitation, and thank you, the Canadian Epilepsy Teaching Network, for giving me this opportunity. It's really exciting to talk about this topic, and I've been working in this field for some time, so I hope I can discuss some of these topics with you, and then we will go over if there is any questions. And thanks for all of you for joining here also. My topic will be primarily on focusing the AI applications in the use of epilepsy care. I don't have any major disclosures. So the main learning objectives will be how we can get more informed about the advances in the field of AI, especially in relation to the epilepsy care, and also introduce different applications in this field that has come up in recently, both in the field of diagnosis, medical management, surgery. And I also will take you a little bit through the basics of AI and what are the challenges, what are the ethical questions that we need to address. They are all relevant as the field is changing rapidly for good. So I'll give an introduction to the AI, the fields of epilepsy care that may be benefited by AI, and then we'll go to the other topics that I mentioned. So AI it's a big term. It encompasses a lot of subcategories, and it also shares a lot of common thing with data science, big data. We hear all these things frequently. So with the new advances in the computational powers, all these are coming up, and to a great extent, some of them are overlapping. So the terms that you may use here is like AI, artificial intelligence, is a big umbrella term that essentially means like the machines or computers are acting as if they are intelligent, or like they are mimicking the intelligent decision that humans can take. And machine learning is a subcategory of that. In a sense, it mainly focuses on algorithmic or rule-based learning strategies. And it has been in the field for last more than 50 years, and people use different methodologies, support vector machines, regression models, k-means clustering, and all. And deep learning is a subcategory of that machine learning, which further got so the idea of deep learning is instead of you giving algorithm, let the machine develop its own algorithm, or like methods of calculation. So there are different methods of deep learning that has come up, the common things that you will hear in terms of acronyms are like CNN, this is a convolutional neural network, transformers, language-based models. So there are multiple of them, but essentially it is, this is probably the most like a hot field now, like the deep learning methods, where it is more computationally intensive, and it is giving very interesting results for us. So where do we stand in this? Okay, so we are not totally new to AI. Actually, we are like the neuroscience field. We do have a neuroscience is the one that gave rise to the AI methodologies, like or at least the main conceptual framework for the AI. So at least the deep neural network or the neural network take cues from the Hebbian learning that was introduced by like in the early 60s, 50s. They introduced the idea how the neurons learn. It is usually the terms used are like long-term potentiation, long-term depression. So the laws were introduced by Hebb, and so the essential idea is if you give inputs to neurons, from one side, and if you keep stimulating that particular, if the presynaptic neuron gives input to the postsynaptic neuron, and if they keep activating together, their connection will get strong. It is essentially the long-term potentiation idea that happens in the hippocampus. So a lot of ideas of the DNN is taken from the same philosophy, where you give inputs and then you try to teach the neural network using some transfer function. And if you are getting the right results, you enhance those connections. So I'll go a little bit extra step into that. So this is usually the basic framework of a deep neural network, where you have input layers, output layers. So you feed data into the input layers, and you will have some output based on the connectivity weights of individual nodes. And once you have the output, you check whether you got the right output. And if there is a difference in the right output, say like if you are giving an image of a cat and you got an answer, or it's a dog, then it is a wrong answer, right? So then you ask the weight to be corrected so that the answer can move more towards cat. So that is the essential workhorse behind the deep neural network. Like the data is fed into the network, and as the time progresses, as the training is iterated multiple times, finally you get the right answers. Only problem is that this area is called the black box, pretty much. We know a little bit about that, what is happening there, but we don't know the exact details of what is happening there. So one of my interests is there, like how this black box is working. But I'll give you an example of what we were doing later. Moving on. So I just want to introduce some of the concepts in this field, so that when you are like reading literature, you get an idea what we are talking about. Trained data is essentially a labeled data that is used to train that network, the machine learning algorithm. And test data is usually like after the training, check whether the training was adequate or at least performing in a reasonable way. Then you will hear about a term called generative AI. So usually the initial deep neural network or most of the algorithms were only like used to classify, cluster, or like get simple answers. But now people are going further steps so that you can generate new artifacts based on the existing learning that you feed the images of 1,000 cats, and then you ask for I want to get an image of a pink cat. So it will be the AI will be able to generate that. As a simple example, you don't need AI for that, but essentially that is the idea. And the other part is the hallucinations, like especially with language models, you may start hearing this. This is not the schizophrenia hallucinations, but it is similar to that. So the language models start generating, or not only language model, any model can generate images. Say like, for example, in the case of generative AI, we know that we have pictures of man landing in the moon, but you can ask, give me a picture of a man landing in Pluto or like Neptune, and it will generate it. So the AI does not have a discretion. Oh, the man has never landed in Neptune. but it is capable of generating. So that is what we call it's like basically inaccurate and fabricated. So we had to be very careful about that possibility. So these are some of the terms. There are other terms that are important, but I thought these are especially important from our standpoint. I will also introduce some of the, when you are reading literature in this field, this is one curve that you may encounter multiple times, ROC curve and AUC values. So ROC curve is the expansion of this receiver operator characteristics. So essentially what it tells is what is the true positive rate against false positive rate. So basically we want the false positive rate to be minimum and true positive rate to be maximum. So we want the value to be as close to this corner here. And anything, you will never see that. And this curve usually happens when you are clustering data, okay, or clustering or you are classifying the data. So let's say you are classifying a group of EEG into generalized epilepsy versus focal epilepsy. So you want the value, the true positive rate to be the maximum. And so you can, when you have the model, depending on what the model generates, you will have to put the threshold at different levels. So essentially, this changes the variation is in this curve is the change in the threshold where you are applying. But generally speaking, where you want to look for is like how close is this curve to this corner. So like when you see AI model and this is our ROC curve, that is what essentially you are looking for. And another thing is the AUC, the area under the curve. So another way to look at it is like how big is this area? So you want this area to be as big as possible. This is the integral of this curve, right? So you want this area to be like, if it is total, it will be like 1. And anything less than that is less ideal, but you will never get a model with 1, like in that case, the AI has achieved complete, it will be at its best state. But usually majority of the curves will be like this. Moving on, now I will go into what's happening in the field now. So this is a data from the FDA website where they report the different AI tools that has been approved over time. It's not, all of them are not necessarily deep learning based. They all have some level of machine learning algorithm incorporated into that. As of October 2023, we have 692 devices approved by FDA. And that includes multiple devices in the neurology field. I specifically put the devices or application. They are not necessarily all devices. Some of them are just applications like Empatica watch that we are aware of. The EEG review analysis, and more recently, I think the rhythm, irregular rhythm notification feature. This is from the cardiovascular field by Apple. So the field is expanding so much, okay, and there is definitely in another year there will be multiple more applications coming in this field. I'm sure. So how did we land up here? So that is one question we often ask, right? Like, what are the factors that led into a situation, or like, not. Like, what are the components that are feeding into the development of AI and application of that in real life now, which is expanding rapidly. So multiple things, like on one side, we have the data side. The the amount of data that we are getting from different sources are expanding rapidly. Previously, it was in gigabyte level, now terabyte, and it keeps on increasing. We have different varieties of data, and the speed at which we can acquire is also increasing, and the precision or the resolution at which we can acquire is also increasing. Like at some point, and for example, if you just take the EEG, before 1990s, I think digital EEG itself was not there. Like all the EEG was paper based. So to have a digital like a ADC converter, analog data to digital converter, that itself was challenging. So that is so these are the different, and then like naturally the learning algorithm has improved. And one point I want to make is that the algorithm has existed maybe at least in the last 50 years, but the application of that to more popular areas of daily activity came mainly because of the abundance of the technology that come from other fields. It's the same in the other fields, not only in our in the epilepsy field, but in other fields also. So that's why we are here. So now we have to ask the question: do we really need this AI kind of tool? So I like, do we really have do we need to use this? We have to, right? I mean, there is plenty of questions where we can employ AI as a tool. We will come to, we'll discuss about to what extent we can use that is another question, but at least say on one area like evaluation of seizures, like checking the electronic medical records, like processing the natural language, sometimes even going through the patient chart, the AI can help. The EEG analysis in like detection, seizure identification. Another thing is like seizure prediction. We will go into the tools, potential tools that people have been working on later. Also to mitigate the uncertainty in treatment response. Like this is always a very challenging question for all of us. Like when you encounter a new patient, you start a new medicine or Keppra or lamotrigine. Is it going to work for this patient? Are there additional tools? Like can I look? I can look at the EEG. We have some idea which one would work, but we don't have any great idea to tell the patient that, oh, this medicine is going to work for you. And then as we go more into the additional fields like seizure localization, surgical approach, and another big area is like stopping the medicine. Like this patient has been seizure free for 5 years. Can we stop the medicine? Or like even if I do any EEG, is there additional information that I can get on whether I can arrive at a decision on that? So these are all areas where the AI can help. Language models, as I was mentioning, let's go to the question of EMR. It has not yet, we have not yet started using it, the language models, but language models are out there, which all of us know, ChatGPT, Bard, Gemini. And they all raise several questions also, patients have been using it, right? Like now, many a times they have been using it, and unfortunately, it can sometimes give wrong answers also. Like the most recently, what I heard is that one of the language model answered one of the patient who has bilateral mesial temporal sclerosis. It tells you, oh, okay, you can do bilateral temporal lobectomy. So it knows that there is temporal lobectomy is a treatment option, but it does not know that bilateral temporal lobectomy is not a feasible option. So going back to the large language model, how do they work? I mean, this is not too important for us, but just to give an idea why, uh, how much is their understanding to get it, to give you answers. Essentially, they are learning from the existing text data out there in the internet. Okay, they try to identify the relationship between the words, like so they make a matrix out of like all the relationships and try to learn from which words are related, like focal. If you put a word focal and then the next word can be epilepsy, and like patient focal, then the next word can be epilepsy, something like. So they generate metrics based on that. So there is no understanding in our there's not they do not have any understanding of what is focal epilepsy, but they try to make it's basically based on how the words are related, based on the available text data in the internet. They go through all the literatures and everything. But interestingly, there are several models now. These are the general models, and it's like GPT-4, GPT-2, GPT-3, GPT-4, Chat Doctor. Many of them are available online, but some of them are proprietary. I will go to a example study that this came out recently, I think in 2023. They trained not actually trained, they just used the language model, ChatGPT 3 and 4, to check whether they can take a neurology board exam. They were not specifically trained with neurology textbook or anything. They were just like the regular model out there in the internet. And so interestingly, these are their performance in different levels of questions. So the Chat GPT, this is the LLM. LLM1 is the circle, and the triangle is LLM2. This is Chat GPT 2. So it seems that they actually performed better than the mean human score, like all of us who took neurology course. So that is the mean. The mean was, I think, 73.8, but the LLM2 performed at 85%. And then they subclassified and checked into which particular fields the LLM performs extremely well or not. So these are the different categories of our board exam, and where they correctly answered. So again, the triangle is ChatGPT. This is the box is the our neurologist performance, actually, with the different quartiles. So you can see the LLM2 actually performed like invariably it outperformed better than the neurologist in this case. I mean, granted that they are just learning from the text data there, and they are just performing based on that. Some of the interesting fields I noticed they do very well are, for example, neurogenetics. I think, especially since that is a field with a lot of data, I think they perform. I mean, even the LLM, that's what I was telling, LLM1 performed pretty well compared. LLM2 outperformed in all classes of fields compared to the general neurology trained people. So that's one example where this is heading. That means that like large language models can be potentially very useful, and they can perform pretty well. And it can be very useful in integration into our clinical decision support systems, epilepsy surgery, and definitely for analyzing genomics. That is one area I think AI will definitely will have a big impact in the coming years. As I mentioned, there is several challenges. They do make errors, and sometimes the errors can be pretty dangerous. They have hallucinations. It can lead to spreading of fake information. Like sometimes patient searches or something, and then like, okay, they generated some information about a specific medicine, and unfortunately, it looks very authentic also. So that is one thing that I noticed. Like if you search in the language models, one big weakness of language models is that they are very confident. They don't know that they can be wrong. Okay, so that is one thing. And there is other concerns about they do not update to recent information, which probably I think in the near future this will not be a problem because new models are being developed which can update very fast. Cultural issues, racial biases are another issue. We'll talk about that in the ethical concerns. I changed, apart from the language model, specifically in the field of epilepsy, we have our EEG, MRI, and also we do have a lot of biomedical signals itself, which can, where we can apply the deep learning or AI technologies. So one very important one is seizure forecasting, evaluation of timelines, and seizure daily evaluation. Long-term wearable devices has been out there in the market, which can have potential impact. So I'll give you some examples. One of them is the SCORE-I model that was developed based on the routine EEG data to evaluate whether it can interpret the clinical electroencephalogram. This was trained on 30,000 EEGs, and it mainly aimed at classifying the EEG to epileptic form, focal, epileptic form generalized, non-epileptic form focal, non-epileptic form diffuse. And interestingly, that data, the model, it's called SCORE-I model. It is a convolutional neural network based model. They were able to achieve a good level of accuracy. Actually, the accuracy was better than the agreement among the human experts. So this is where the numbers matter. Okay, so if you look here, there is a wet AC1 agreement coefficient. So the agreement, it's a coefficient that tells that how well different people agree for categorization of the data. So the coefficient in the case of the human subjects was 0.72. And then you look at the coefficient between the SCORE-AI and the majority consensus. So that means that the SCORE-AI, that convolutional model mostly concurred with the majority of the epileptologists who predicted that this data belonged to normal category. So across the data, you can see that that agreement is better for this SCORE-AI. So this is one example where like a routine EEG can be interpreted by a machine. Only thing, this category is only to fall. Many a times you may find other type of data. Sometimes you may see a bird suppression data, or sometimes you may see birds, GPDs. So it has not been trained on all of them, and we don't know how it will pan out if it is trained on all of them. And and sometimes you are looking for other special features like reactivity, all those things. So and to an extent, They did not comment on the effect of the artifact. That is always a challenge in the interpretation of EEG. But it seems to be promising, highly promising, actually. And then another application will be seizure prediction. You know, a lot of our patients, their biggest concern is always the anxiety. They don't know when the seizure is going to happen. I have patients telling me, oh, if I can have a seizure every Saturday morning and I know that this is going to happen, then I'm fine with that. But they don't know whether this is going to happen when they are taking their kids to school or when they are attending a party. So that is the biggest challenge a lot of patients are having. So this is a neural network DNN methodology. They tried to use the MIT data set to predict the seizure 1 hour early. And they simultaneously train two DNN, and one is to identify the seizures, and then they also try to identify the seizures, evaluate the seizures, the differences between the seizures in different patients. So that way, everybody's seizure is not the same. Depending on that, you will have to modify the algorithm. So the expectation is that the algorithm itself will learn that what modification it uses to make. So this also appears to make good prediction, these are the accuracy at different periods, like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. So they do have high sensitivity. Only thing their accuracy goes down as you change the window. So this is another potential application. And again, this is based on an existing data set. This was not a real world study, so we don't know how much it will be useful. And second issue is that this is not an easy thing for everybody to wear. Scalp EEG always it's not a real life practical solution, right? So that is one issue, but it tells the potential promise there. And then automated seizure detection is another field. I'll probably skip through this one. It's the same idea. Seizure prediction based on IEEG, intracranial EEG. This was based on it was a pseudo prospective seizure prediction study based on 10 patients. And essentially what they do is they have 16 electrode IEG system, and this is already recorded, and they were able to also have a high prediction sensitivity, but there is a huge range. You can say that 43 to 83% sensitivity. The problem here is the mean time of warning. So actually, this is not percentage. Mean time in warning is how much of the time of the data recorded the patient was given warning. Oh, okay. So if that time is very high, that there is not much point in having a prediction, right? You want so there is an issue with specificity there, but this is a potential application. Only thing, probably it's intracranial EEG, how effective it is going to be. I mean, we know that NeuroPace is something similar to that we have been using, and NeuroPace also has done similar studies, and which suggest that there is a potential to give warning about seizures on this. MEG data analysis. One major challenge with MEG data is it involves a lot of post-processing, but the AI tools have significantly enhanced that speed. So now, if that kind of tools can be developed, one major advantage will be that you can have a real-time MEG analysis, and it may significantly improve the utility of MEGs. rather than just waiting for doing MEG and wait for several days. So especially I imagine a time when we probably will be able to do a lot of language studies and all based on this real-time MEG data. Then we always have the indirectal epileptic form discharge detection as a challenge. So that has been there has been a lot of studies on that. I'll skip through that one now. This was a very recent study. They used a network they called SparseNet, seizures, periodic discharges, rhythmic pattern, and continuum net. I mean, that's what they called it. Essentially to classify ictal, indirectal injury continuum events. So they have 6,095 scalp EEG and from 2,000 some patients. And they were able to, the SparseNet was able to characterize so the study was able to check whether the SparseNet is comparable to the expert opinion. So let me take you to the graph here. I mean, this is again where we have the AUC-ROC curve. So that's why I was pointing to this curve earlier. Like we may encounter these curves very frequently. So these are the different categories where the classification is taken, like seizure, lateralized periodic discharges, GPDs, and all. So these are individual like experts where they classify. So you can see that this is the curve from the machine. Okay, so you can see the experts fall on both sides. The machine is very comparable on this classification on all category actually. There may be some only in the other category maybe the experts, these are the epileptologists, maybe they did a little bit better than the machine. Otherwise the machine is equally good. For example, LRDA machine probably did better than the experts. So that suggests that there is a lot of potential there. And I move on to the MRI-based application in deep learning approaches. So in this study, they classified, the idea was to classify the MRI data into Alzheimer's disease, temporal lobe epilepsy versus healthy controls. Again, they used a convolutional neural network. You have the three categories there. And as you can see, the most important, interesting part for me is when they checked into where the DNN looked into in classification, they noticed that it's not just the temporal lobe that the DNN used for arriving at the classification of, for example, temporal lobe epilepsy. They also look at the insula, even at other sites like cerebellum. It kind of tells that that DNN is looking beyond, or like it can generate information from things that we cannot directly observe. Like if you look directly at temporal lobe epilepsy, we are particularly focusing on temporal lobe, but the DNN is capable of trying to identify alteration in other regions also. So that is one interesting potential of the DNN in this case. Another big field is obviously the genetics and like not only research but in the clinical field also. So as the genetic field has expanded, there is a lot of emphasis on using the deep learning technologies, both in variant detection, variant annotation. Like variant detection is where they are like looking at the entire like the patient's particular genome and compare it with the population and check whether this variant is relevant or not, and then they feed it into different models to arrive at actually this particular variant is pathogenic or non-pathogenic. And also they use to predict, to give you further information. I will give you an example of what, like for example, this is a website called Franklin. This is one specific. So like if you are checking for green 2B and you feed that additional information into the website, and it will come up with the gene pathogenicity. So essentially, at the back engine behind this is essentially a AI tool that they are using. And interestingly, they also collect data from people who are checking on it so that they can train their model further. Same thing, also whether the DNN is being used for checking the pathogenicity of a alteration in the like a missense mutation or something like that. And they use a graph attention neural network. Means like they put different components into to the neural network, like whether this amino acid change is significant, how much the other variation in the surrounding regions of that protein will contribute to the changes in this particular missense mutations function or impact on that particular person. And also we know that even though there is sometimes a mutation in one person, that person may not have the same effect as another person who has the same mutation. So that may be partly because of the multiple other factors, methylation, so many other factors that may be coming into picture. So that is an exciting field also. Interpretable deep learning is another big area where, for example, let's say you are feeding this particular image into the DNN, and this is a general example. And so how did it arrive at a decision, whether it is a volcano or a coffee cup? So it does not look at the entire area. It particularly look at the interesting features. And the question is, are we able to identify those features? So like if the MRI, if the DNN is deciding, oh, the patient has temporal lobe epilepsy, can we identify which particular features it used to arrive at that particular decision? And same thing can go with the language models also. One study that we did on that was we had a similar model, like a convolutional neural network, to identify epileptogenic zone. This is done on intracranial EEG. And this model was able to predict where the seizure is coming from. So the main results are like, this is the area where the DNN is predicting where the seizure is coming from. This was our decision based on, like the epilepsy conference where we review all the EEG data and all, and like MRI, and we finally ablated this patient, did a laser ablation on this region, and the patient became seizure free. So that is a good DNN. So now I can look at whether what particular features in the signal led into that particular decision by the DNN. Oh, this is an epileptic region. So in this particular example, what I'm looking at is like this is intracranial EEG signal. The blue is the raw signal. You can generate a heat map with the different algorithms, and the algorithm that we used is called GradCamp. Essentially, the heat map means that try to identify where the DNN looked for abnormalities. So the main result is that it particularly look at the energy-rich regions of the brain. I mean, like the EEG signal, the energy-rich regions of the EEG signal to arrive at that decision. So that kind of enhances our understanding of the electrophysiology. And we can also further understand why this particular DNN arrives at decision, is it a reliable method to arrive at that decision also? So same thing goes for like if you are predicting stroke. So we want to know, say, like in the MRI, if the DNN is predicting the stroke, we want to know how it arrived at that particular decision, right? So I think this is another important area to explore more, to check whether are we able to identify where the decision is coming from. I think for the sake of time, I'll skip that one and go to the medical and ethical concerns. We have as the technology advances, one common question is whether this will replace the clinicians. Then it will what kind of how the clinicians can improve on themselves to take advantage of the AI tools. Another thing is that in the epilepsy research or general medical research, just as I mentioned, can we identify novel patterns? Can we identify maybe if you look at the MRI of the temporal lobe epilepsy, there may be consistent changes in the insular region. Maybe that may be very important. We are concerned about the systemic bias that can be perpetuated by the DNN models. Once you train the DNN based on, say, like if we had trained DNN based on the COVID times, maybe after the COVID period, the DNN will still try to predict, oh, this could be COVID, this could be COVID. So those kind of systemic bias can be perpetuated. So it is important to address this. So it's like when we are making models, we have to take into account the interest of the stakeholders. We should try to explain how the DNN is arriving at the decision. It should adapt to the constantly changing field of the medicine, and does it have ability to overcome the different types of biases? It could be racial bias, it could be cultural biases. So all those are very challenging, and then we have to worry about the data management, confidentiality issues, and all. So in summary, I would say it's a very exciting and emerging field where we as doctors, epileptologists, we have to pay attention. And I know that like if you look at the last year's conference, there is a lot of posters focusing on this area. And it is going to have impact on all fields of our medical care. So we will have to address the medical and ethical implications of this. What are the future directions? I think there will be more and more incorporation of LLMs and in the decision-making process as well. Interpretation of the AI, even understanding what is AI is learning would be another important aspect that we need to explore more. We have to address the ethical issues much more thoroughly. Otherwise, we may encounter more ethics-related issue also in the future. Okay, I will stop there. I know that we have only 10 minutes left for discussion, and I will